Let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this before you answer. What do you think happens to a woman when she lives without intimacy for a long time? Not sex, not attention, intimacy, because those three are not the same thing, and confusing them is where most people get it wrong. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never talk about. A woman can be surrounded by people, in a relationship, even married, and still be deeply, painfully deprived of intimacy. And when that happens, something changes inside her, quietly, psychologically, irreversibly. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through what really happens to a woman when intimacy disappears from her life. Not from a man's perspective, not from romantic movies, but from female psychology. Some of this will surprise you. Some of it might make you uncomfortable. And if you're paying attention, you'll start recognizing women you know. So stay with me. Because the first change is subtle, but everything after that gets darker. Let's start with the first thing that happens. Before we dive deeper, a quick message. If you've been learning from my videos and you want to support this work, you can subscribe to me on Facebook with a paid membership, send stars, or join my YouTube channel's paid community. Your support helps me create more powerful content for you, and I truly appreciate every bit of it. All right, now let's continue. The silent withdrawal. A woman doesn't get louder, she gets quieter. When intimacy fades, most people expect women to complain, argue, or demand more. But psychologically, she pulls inward. She stops explaining how she feels, stops correcting misunderstandings, stops trying to be emotionally understood. Not because she doesn't care, but because her nervous system starts learning something dangerous. That closeness isn't available here. And once a woman accepts that internally, she begins to emotionally ration herself. She speaks less, shares less, reacts less. And this is where people make a fatal mistake. They think, oh, she's calm now. Oh, she's mature. Oh, things must be better. No, she's conserving emotional energy. And when a woman starts conserving herself around you, you're already losing her. But here's what most people don't understand about this quietness. It's not silence, it's strategy. Her brain is protecting her from repeated emotional injury. Every time she reached out and wasn't met, every time she tried to connect and hit a wall, her nervous system took note. And eventually, it stopped sending her in that direction. This is neural adaptation at its most primal level. The same mechanism that keeps you from touching a hot stove twice is now keeping her from seeking emotional warmth from you. And what she replaces intimacy with next changes how she bonds forever. The birth of the self-sufficient woman. The second thing that happens is emotional self-parenting. When intimacy disappears, a woman subconsciously becomes her own emotional provider. She stops expecting comfort, stops expecting reassurance, stops expecting someone to notice her emotional shifts. Instead, she learns to self-regulate. At first, this looks like strength, independence, emotional control. But psychologically, something else is happening. Her attachment system is slowly rewiring. She's teaching herself, I don't need to lean, I don't need to open, I don't need to rely. And here's the dark part most men never realize. Once a woman becomes good at living without intimacy, it becomes incredibly hard for her to accept it again, even when it's offered, because intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels unsafe to someone who survived without it. So when intimacy finally shows up, she doesn't rush toward it. She questions it, tests it, keeps emotional distance. Not because she doesn't want closeness, but because her body no longer trusts it. Think about what this means on a neurological level. Her brain has created new pathways, new habits of emotional survival, new patterns of self-soothing that don't involve another person. And those pathways? They become highways. The more she travels them, the more automatic they become. Until one day, seeking comfort from another person feels foreign, uncomfortable, almost unnecessary. This is how women become what society calls independent, but what psychology calls avoidantly attached. And this is where attraction begins to change in a way most people never notice. The privatization of desire. The third change is in how she experiences desire. A woman deprived of intimacy doesn't lose desire. She disconnects it from people. Her fantasies become internal. Her emotional world becomes private. her sense of longing turns inward. She may still feel attraction, still feel arousal, still crave connection, but not toward anyone in her real life. Because desire without intimacy feels safer than desire with disappointment. So instead of wanting someone, she wants escape. Music, stories, imagined conversations, alternate realities. This is why emotionally neglected women often seem distant, but deeply intense internally. They feel everything, just not with you. And here's what's particularly fascinating about this stage. Her emotional and erotic imagination becomes richer, more vivid, more satisfying than reality ever was, because in her mind, she controls the narrative. There's no rejection, no misunderstanding, no emotional labor, just connection on her terms. And the longer she lives in that internal world, the harder it becomes for real people to compete with it. Because real intimacy requires risk, but imagined intimacy is safe. And safety, for a woman who's been emotionally starved, becomes more valuable than connection. And the next shift explains why emotionally distant women are often misunderstood as cold, the mask of neutrality. The fourth thing that happens is emotional numbness on the surface. This one is dangerous because it's deceptive. When intimacy disappears long enough, a woman stops reacting the way she used to. She doesn't argue, doesn't beg, doesn't chase clarity. She becomes neutral. And neutrality is not peace, it's resignation. Psychologically, this is a defense mechanism called emotional flattening. Her nervous system is saying, if connection hurts, I'll feel less. So she laughs less intensely, cares less visibly, responds instead of engages. And here's the terrifying part. People often fall back in love with her at this stage because she's easy now, low drama, unbothered. But what they're loving is her emotional shutdown. They're attracted to the version of her that has given up, that has stopped asking for what she needs, that has stopped making them uncomfortable with her emotional truth. And this creates a cruel irony. The moment she becomes what they always wanted, calm, undemanding, pleasant, is the exact moment she's furthest from them emotionally. They think they've finally found peace in the relationship. She knows she's found peace from it, but neither says it out loud. Because the illusion of harmony is easier than the reality of disconnection. And once a woman reaches this stage, she becomes capable of something most people never expect: the awakening of clarity. The fifth change is hyperclarity. When intimacy is gone, illusion disappears. A woman who no longer feels emotionally bonded starts seeing reality clearly. She notices patterns, inconsistencies, empty promises. She stops romanticizing potential, stops filling in emotional gaps with hope. And this is where power shifts, because intimacy clouds judgment, but emotional distance sharpens it. She becomes observant, strategic, less emotionally reactive, not because she's manipulative, but because emotions are no longer blinding her. This is often the phase where a woman decides, quietly, that she's done, long before anyone notices. And what makes this stage so powerful is that it's not driven by anger. It's not dramatic. It's not a cry for attention. It's simply clear. She sees what is, not what could be, not what was promised, what actually exists. And in that clarity, she makes decisions that her emotional self never could. She stops waiting for change, stops hoping for effort, stops believing in potential, because potential without action is just a comfortable lie. And she's done lying to herself. And what she does with her affection next will tell you everything about her future. The redirection of love. The sixth thing that happens is affection redirection. A woman deprived of intimacy doesn't stop being affectionate. She redirects it toward her work, her goals, her body, her routines, her inner world. She pours emotional energy into places where it won't be rejected. And over time, those places become more fulfilling than people. This is how women emotionally leave relationships before physically leaving them. By the time she walks away, she's already built a life where intimacy isn't required to survive. Watch closely during this phase. You'll see her investing in herself in ways she never did before. Learning new skills, building new interests, creating new routines, not out of spite, not to make anyone jealous, but because she's filling the void with things that actually respond to her care. A garden grows when you water it. A skill improves when you practice it. A body transforms when you nurture it. These things give her what intimacy used to, a sense of purpose, growth, connection, just not with another person. And here's what happens psychologically during this redirection. She starts experiencing what's called flow states more often. Those moments of deep engagement where time disappears, where she feels alive, capable, whole. And she realizes something profound. She can feel whole without waiting for someone else to complete her. And now we reach the most misunderstood part of all, the selectivity of the emotionally evolved. The seventh change is selective intimacy. When a woman has lived without intimacy long enough, she becomes extremely selective about who gets access to her emotional world. She doesn't open easily. She doesn't overshare. She doesn't bond quickly. But when she does choose, it's intentional. This is why emotionally deprived women often appear guarded but deeply loyal when they finally connect. They're not afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of wasting it. Because she's learned that intimacy is precious. It's not something to be given freely to anyone who asks. It's something to be shared with someone who's earned it. And earning it doesn't mean grand gestures. It means consistency, presence, emotional availability. It means showing up, not just physically, but emotionally. She's looking for someone who understands that intimacy isn't sex. It's not dinner dates or flowers or words. It's the feeling of being seen, of being heard, of being safe enough to be vulnerable. And she won't settle for less anymore, because she knows what less costs. And the final transformation explains why losing intimacy is sometimes permanent. The point of no return. The last thing that happens is emotional independence. Not the trendy kind, not the "I don't need anyone" performance, but true emotional self-sufficiency. She knows how to comfort herself, regulate herself, validate herself. And here's the harsh truth. A woman who becomes emotionally independent will never tolerate emotional neglect again, even if it means being alone, especially if it means being alone. Because loneliness with peace feels safer than closeness without intimacy. And this is where many people misunderstand what's happening. They think she's become hard, closed off, incapable of love. But that's not it at all. She's simply recalibrated her standards. She's learned that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. And being with someone doesn't guarantee connection. So she chooses quality over proximity, depth over availability, truth over comfort. And if that means walking away from people who can't meet her there, she walks. Not with bitterness, not with regret, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows her worth. So if you're wondering, can a woman survive without intimacy? Yes, but she won't be the same woman. And if you're with a woman who feels distant, calm, self-contained, and quietly detached, don't assume she's fine. She may simply be done needing you. Because here's the final truth that most people never grasp. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And a woman who has learned to live without intimacy doesn't fight anymore, doesn't cry anymore, doesn't plead anymore. She simply moves on, internally first, and then, when she's ready, externally. And by the time you notice she's been gone for months, maybe years. You just weren't paying attention. If this video made you think, made you uncomfortable, or made you recognize something real, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. And check out the other videos here for more wisdom, psychology, and truths most people are afraid to talk about. Because understanding intimacy isn't about romance. It's about power, connection, and what happens when they disappear. And recognizing these signs isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Because the women in your life, the ones who seem fine, who seem strong, who seem unbothered, might be showing you exactly what this video described. And the question isn't whether they can survive without intimacy. The question is whether you're willing to show up before they stop asking you to.